Hey everyone! Welcome to The Young and the Restless. I'm Jane, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Young and the Restless, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. According to spoilers for the upcoming 2 weeks of The Young and the Restless, which run from August 4th to August 15th, Claire Newman and Audra Charles will engage in a heated argument while Kyle Abbott approaches Adam Newman with a proposal. Here's what YNR supporters may anticipate, as Chelsea Lawson will also find himself in a difficult situation. After Cole Howard's funeral service, Claire will let her grandfather have it because she will be upset with Victor Newman's treatment of Kyle during the week of August 4th to 8th. Nikki Newman will believe that Victor's recent conflict with Claire is solely his own fault. Claire will learn that Victor let Audra to seduce him when Kyle eventually confesses to her what transpired in Nice. Victor will declare Audra's termination because she failed in her attempt to sabotage Kyle and Claire's romance. They are going to have a heated confrontation since Audra will also have to deal with Claire's rage. Kane Ashby will put Billy Abbott in a difficult situation. Billy will have to choose whether or not to help Kane's quest, which will be challenging given that Kane intends to target Jabot in addition to all of his other targets. Jill Abbott and Billy will have a heated disagreement after she makes a YNR comeback. As it turns out, Victor will still want Adam to drag Billy through the mud in the press, which means Billy will also have further problems with Newman Media. Chelsea will find herself in a predicament where she must choose a side. Will Chelsea finally give up and allow Adam to proceed with publishing the successful pieces? Phyllis Summers will continuously swear her allegiance to Kane and try to irritate Billy whenever she can. As he attempts to come to an agreement with Adam, he will return to Kyle with Claire. Claire and Kyle might wonder if Adam's place is still available, as they will be prepared to move in together. The greater question, of course, will be if Adam is prepared to defy Victor's directives and work with Kyle and Claire to come to a consensus on this. While Victor looks for an intriguing recruit, Nikki will have a unique request for Jack Abbott. Although Lily might be hesitant to target Kane with dubious intentions, Victor would pressure her to join him in his retaliation. We'll see if that entails an arrangement with Lily or someone else, though, because Victor will eventually make an unexpected bargain. After all the nice drama, Mariah Copeland will be relieved that her mother is okay and will catch up with Sharon Newman. Mariah will continue to be troubled by the memory of suffocating that stranger while on a work trip, and she will be concerned that her split with Tessa Porter may result in divorce. Tessa and Daniel Romolotti Jr. might become further closer over the week of August 11th to 15th. He might be more interested in her romantically than he has been expressing. Regarding Sharon and her developing romance with Nick Newman, would they kiss again? There might be some problems because Nick and Sharon will be in a complex state of limbo. He will be bursting with confidence when he faces Victor again with Kane once more. But if he can get Lily to join him in his scheme, Victor will employ some evil tactics that Kane won't anticipate. Finally, Jack might worry that Billy is getting into too much trouble if his partnership with Kane continues. You can be sure that Jack will be incensed if Billy assists Kane in pursuing Jabot. Claire and Audra's rivalry is one of the most heated in the high-stakes world of personal grudges and business power struggles. Their conflict is a struggle of egos, ambition, and unwavering resolve rather than merely a contest of intelligence. And in the center? Chelsea's survival instincts and loyalty are going to be pushed to the ultimate test. The fierce confrontation between Claire and Audra in Chelsea's tight spot delves deeply into this volatile dynamic, where alliances change like sand and every action could spell success or failure. Claire is a shrewd strategist who has used cold, hard reasoning and calculated risks to build her empire. She modifies the rules to fit her wants rather than merely playing the game. Audra, however, is not a softie. She thrives in turmoil, transforming every challenge into an opportunity. She is charismatic, brutal, and not afraid to get her hands dirty. There will inevitably be deadly ramifications when these two titans collide. Their conflict is personal, involving secrets, betrayals, and a desire for power that neither party is prepared to give up. It is not merely about business. Chelsea, the surprising wild card, enters. She was once Claire's confidant, but now she's caught in a tightening vice and must negotiate the minefield between these two powerful women. Does she remain faithful to Claire, the career-guiding mentor who might suddenly regard her as disposable? Or is she aware that one mistake could ruin her and takes a chance on AUDRA's erratic promises? Chelsea's predicament is about more than just picking sides. It's about surviving in a society where power is the only thing that counts and trust is a liability. Every discussion becomes a fight and every negotiation a battlefield when tensions reach a breaking point. What's at stake? Reputation, control, and eventually legacy. Chelsea's next action might be the spark that ignites the powder keg that is created by Claire's accuracy and AUDRA's boldness. Will she outsmart them both or end up as a casualty of a conflict she didn't initiate? Chelsea's tight spot, Claire and AUDRA's fierce face-off, is a compelling examination of devotion, ambition, and the steep price of power. With its incisive dialogue, surprising turns, and uncompromising characters, this narrative immerses readers in a world where winning at any costs is the only norm. Who will be the winner? How much does it cost? The decisions Chelsea has to make before the clock runs out and the shadows of deceit hold the answers. This battle is just beginning, so fasten your seatbelt. The calm anxiety that permeated the Grand Phoenix like a storm ready to erupt was the precursor to Claire and AUDRA's intense confrontation. Unspoken accusations and barely contained rage filled the air as Claire entered the lobby, her pointed heels resonating on the shiny floors, her gaze fixed on AUDRA, who stood smugly by the bar, drinking a martini as if she had been waiting for her the entire time. Claire had heard enough rumors to know that AUDRA had been interfering once more, pulling strings behind the scenes, attempting to influence Newman Media's future course of action while gaining more authority and a closer relationship with Kyle. It was the decisive moment. Claire had rebuilt from the ashes of a complex past and earned her place in Genoa City. She was no longer the same woman who had come to the city uncertain of herself and yearning for acceptance. She also had no intention of allowing AUDRA Charles to destroy everything she had worked so hard to achieve. There would be no polite pretense, it became evident as soon as their eyes met. Claire remarked, "Are you done trying to twist Kyle into your next pawn, or are you just getting started?" in a cold, measured voice that broke through the surrounding hubbub. With a raised eyebrow and a twitchy corner of her mouth, AUDRA responded, "I don't need to twist anything, Claire," but her tone was stern. Kyle is an adult who is well aware of his desires. The line stung, but Claire didn't flinch. "Perhaps you should stop caring about me and start questioning why he keeps coming back." She moved in closer, their bodies now only inches apart, the lines of combat marked not with fists but with venom in their words and fire in their eyes. Claire stated calmly, "He keeps coming back because he eventually sees through you. Everyone does. Although you may briefly win them over, it never lasts. That's your problem, you don't comprehend loyalty, but you play for power." AUDRA's smile vanished as she clinked her drink sharply on the bar. "And you believe that you do? You believe you are indestructible because you are the long-lost daughter with a redemption narrative." She sneered. "Claire, let me remind you that just because you deserve another opportunity doesn't mean you're unique." With confidence, Claire's voice lowered to a whisper. "It just makes you lucky. I'm not here by chance." Customers and employees around them quietly moved, feeling the conflagration between the two ladies, but neither appeared to notice or care. "I got here because I stopped letting people like you walk all over me." With every stare and statement exposing past and current wounds, they were in their own universe, engaged in a psychological battle. Chelsea, however, was in a different kind of difficult place across town. Although there wasn't a physical altercation, it was nonetheless oppressive. With a question that rocked her to her core, Billy had approached her at Crimson Lights. Did she know where Connor had gone the night he vanished from the boarding school grounds? Before she could even come up with a falsehood, she was exposed by her silence. The fact was that Connor had called Chelsea that evening, panicked and terrified, stating he was near his breaking point. She had instructed him to wait and remain still, promising to come get him. However, he had already left by the time she got there, and she hadn't spoken to anyone since. Not Adam. Not Billy. Not even Sharon. She felt embarrassed. Ashamed that she hadn't anticipated her son's pain or provided him with protection. The secret was killing her now. Billy looked into her eyes, irritated but not mean. She needed something to center her, so she wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, trembling slightly, and said, "Chelsea, if there's something you're not telling me, now's the time." She said, "He called me. The evening he ran. I feel trapped," he stated over the phone. "I promised to come. However, he had already left by the time I arrived." The confession hung heavy between them. Billy's jaw tensed, but he remained calm. "Why didn't you speak up?" With a softer tone, he asked. "Because I was afraid," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "I'm afraid I let him down. I'm afraid that if I say it aloud, it will become real." Her voice's fragility caused Billy's willpower to break, and he sought for her hand. "Chelsea, you didn't let him down. But if we're not honest with ourselves and with each other, we can't assist him." Claire and Audra's argument at the Grand Phoenix reached a climax. Audra sneered, "You think being in Newman means you're bulletproof?" as Kyle walked into the foyer. "Claire, get up." Kyle's eyes sharpened as he moved between them and put a strong hand on Claire's shoulder. "That name comes with a target." "That's enough," he stated in a firm yet hushed voice. "You too." Audra took a step back, but her glance at Claire was anything but retreat. It was a pledge. A caution. On the other hand, Claire didn't have to elaborate. She had power in her quiet. She had refused to be rattled by Audra and had remained firm. She would reflect on her progress later that evening while sitting in her suite, still shaking from the excitement. Such a confrontation would have broken her not long ago. It just served to remind her of who she was. For Chelsea, however, such clarity did not exist. She paced all night long, tormented by the sound of Connor's voice on the phone and visions of him by himself in the dark. When she finally told Sharon everything over the phone, Sharon encouraged her to come in as soon as possible in the morning. "We'll work it out," Sharon assured. "Together." But a pit of fear persisted long after Chelsea hung up. She was worried that Connor was not only physically lost but also emotionally fading, and that there was not much time left to get him back. As Claire's comments were being repeated, Audra stood on her room's balcony, swirling the remainder of her drink. Audra had underestimated the girl's fighting skills. However, that simply meant Audra would need to learn more and become more intelligent. Just because a Newman girl found her backbone didn't mean she would lose everything she had worked so hard to achieve. No, Audra Charles was far from finished yet. Even though Claire prevailed this time, Audra never played fairly and was already preparing her next move. The secrets of Genoa swirled just below the surface, twisted and explosive, waiting for their next opportunity to explode as the city slept under a canopy of stars. And nobody would be left unaffected when they did, least of all Claire, Audra, or Chelsea. After weeks of building tension, Claire and Audra's intense confrontation eventually erupted in the center of Chelsea's meticulously planned universe, trapping her in a difficult situation with no simple way out. Claire and Audra's enmity was more than simply a professional rivalry. It was a personal conflict between egos, aspirations, and unsolved grudges that had grown worse under courteous smiles and covert taunts until neither could contain it any longer. At first, Chelsea, caught in the crossfire, had attempted to mediate conflicts and reroute discussions before they became toxic, but this time, there was no stopping it. The altercation had broken out during a crucial strategy meeting, where each gaze was a tacit challenge and every remark was a calculated blow. Claire had always been a powerful presence with her razor-sharp wit and unwavering confidence. Her strategic thinking made her a useful asset but also a lethal foe when crossed. In contrast, AUDRA was unrelenting, her goal more intense than anybody else's in the room, and her ability to read people made her equally deadly in a game of wits. With Chelsea's project on the line, the two had been circling each other for months, waiting for the other to make a mistake. Now, their quarrel threatened to blow everything apart. Chelsea had anticipated this moment and seen the tension building each time Claire and AUDRA were together, but she had mistakenly believed that it wouldn't come to this. She had too many people depending on her to keep everything going well, too many deadlines approaching, and too much at stake. But now that the two ladies were engaged in a verbal sparring match that didn't seem to be coming to an end, she had to decide whether to step in and run the risk of upsetting one or both of them, or to remain mute and watch as the project fell apart due to their disagreement. Though neither choice was ideal, the pressure was growing and time was running out. AUDRA responded with harsh honesty, refusing to back down even when the room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Claire's arguments were sharp, piercing AUDRA's barriers with surgical accuracy. With their allegiance split between the two powerhouses, the rest of the team exchanged anxious looks, not knowing where to look or how to respond. Chelsea had always taken great satisfaction in her ability to read the room, handle office politics, and modify her strategy accordingly, but this was different. This was about control, who would eventually determine the project's course, and thus, who actually possessed the authority. It wasn't just about egos or territorial disputes. With her flawless record and undeniable influence, Claire had been with the organization for a longer period of time. Despite being a newcomer, AUDRA had already advanced through the ranks, gaining equal parts admirers and foes for her aggressive strategies and innovative outlook. It had only been a matter of time until their conflicting visions collided, despite Chelsea's efforts to balance their strengths by giving them responsibilities that complemented their abilities while avoiding stomping on each other's toes. Now that the stakes were higher than ever, their argument was endangering the team rather than merely interfering with the discussion. There was a lot of tension in the air, and every word Claire and AUDRA spoke threatened to start a fire. Chelsea was aware that anything she did next would have long-term repercussions, and she could feel the pressure of the situation bearing down on her. She ran the risk of permanently losing AUDRA's respect and possibly her allegiance if she took Claire's side. She would have alienated Claire, whose backing had been essential to gaining her own position, if she had supported AUDRA. Additionally, she might come seen as weak, unsure, and unsuited to lead if she remained neutral. Damage control was the only strategy that worked. In order to overcome the panic that was building in her chest, she forced herself to think strategically and took a deep breath. If that meant coming to an unpopular choice, so be it. The project was too essential to let personal problems ruin it. Claire was momentarily rendered speechless by AUDRA's final, deadly strike before she could say anything more. The silence stretched taut like a cable poised to break, as if the room were holding its breath. Chelsea's mind was racing, trying to determine how to rescue the situation and assess the damage. Claire's countenance hardened, revealing the rage underneath her normally composed demeanor. AUDRA, on the other hand, appeared victorious but cautious, as though she was aware that she had gone too far yet was unable to feel regret. Chelsea was now standing on precarious footing since the balance of power had changed, and the precarious situation she was in was getting tighter by the moment. Her next actions would determine the project's success and even her own future. Chelsea considered her alternatives as the seconds passed, each one more significant than the last. To give everyone a chance to calm down, she could request a recess, but it would simply postpone the inevitable. She could chastise them both and regain control, but it may make matters worse. Alternatively, she may engage the underlying cause of the conflict directly, making people face the actual problem instead than their personal resentment. Although it was a risk, it might be the only option. She braced herself and spoke at last, her voice firm in spite of the internal raging storm. The team's ability to bounce back or suffer irreversible damage from Claire and AUDRA's intense confrontation would depend on what she said next. Chelsea was forced to persevere even though the situation had never felt more precarious. It was crucial to the project's development and possibly to her career. She kept a tight eye on Claire and Audra while she spoke, looking for any indication that her intervention had been successful or had merely made matters worse. Although there was still a noticeable sense of tension in the room, there was also a glimmer of doubt and hesitation that had not previously existed. It was unclear if that was a good or bad thing. Chelsea only knew that the intense confrontation had reached a tipping point and that the results will determine not only the project but also the dynamics of the team as a whole. There was no turning back now that she had entered the battle. Her only option now was to wait and see if her risk would be successful or if Claire and Audra's fight would devour everything in its path. The tight location had forced her hand,